back to the 2021 gauntlet, where I am attempting to finish up these last movies of the previous year so I can compile my thoughts, get my top 10 lists together, and move into 2022. So this is one that I really had to track down. And it took a little while, but was finally able to get it done. And, boy, am I glad I did, because this is a really, really good film, and a film that really does appeal to me and my sensibilities, which should not really be much of a surprise, because it would seem like this is a film tailor-made for me. Kind of in the same way Their Finest and Stan and Ollie was. This is a film that just combines so many things that I like in one complete package. So we have Golden Age comedy, and this time, of course, the subject being Lucille Ball and the incredibly popular and influential show I Love Lucy. It is written and directed by a phenomenal filmmaker in Alan Sorkin. I gotta say, I've never been a fan of his shows, his TV shows. I never liked Aaron Sorkin's TV shows, but his movies I have always enjoyed. I just feel like they're incredibly well written. The directing is tight. The acting is top notch. He has this way of combining all of these wonderful things. The storytelling is fascinating. It's not a complicated story, but it's told in unique ways, and starring some truly, truly great actors. Nicole Kidman, who I firmly believe is one of our finest living actors. Javier Bardem, giving the best performance I've ever seen him give. Of course, the phenomenal J.K. Simmons, who just steals every single film that he's in. Nita Ardrena doing a great turn as Vivian Vance. So, yeah, this is just a film that feels like it was... They had a checklist and said, what are the things that Brandon likes? And let's make a movie that has all of those. And they did, and, should not be shocking to anybody that I like it. So, what is this one about? Well, this, again, is dealing with the tumultuous relationship between two of America's greatest entertainers, Lucille Ball and her husband Desi Arnaz, as they were co-starring in, again, one of the most influential television shows of all time, I Love Lucy. And the story takes place in 1 week, kind of a standard production week, starting with the table read and then going all the way up to filming, and dealing with Lucy and Ricky's, not only their personal relationship, which was rocky, but also dealing with the professional relationships, how they're dealing with the other actors, dealing with outside pressure. This is when Lucille Ball was accused of being a communist by the local press. The fact that she is now pregnant, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to handle that on the air. So there's just a lot of stuff going on in this film. Of course, they also utilize flashbacks to give us kind of a career path and a relationship path for Lucy and Desi, from when they met through her not as successful run in the major studios, then onto radio, and then eventually on to I Love Lucy. One of the things that I think is really important about this movie, especially for a modern audience, is, as we get further and further into, our current era, and the standards and the pioneers of the past are getting further and further into the past, we find that we start to forget about some of these people. We start to take their contributions for granted. And this is not the younger generation. This is all of us. I can honestly say that of course, I Love Lucy is a phenomenal show, but I never really thought about it from a historical influence type of show, and just how influential of people Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz were in the film and television industry, what they revolutionized, not just in terms of it was a situation comedy with, I guess you would say, an interracial couple, with her being white and him being Cuban. So that right away, right there, that's a huge thing. It was the first show to actually have a woman be pregnant on it. It was the first show where they pushed the twin beds together. As they bring up in the film, the show revolutionized how television shows are shot and filmed. Not just that, but Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball were both incredibly intelligent people in the film business, and their studio, Desi Studio, is responsible for creating dozens, if not hundreds, of television staples. Just to give a small example, do you know what show they produced? What show Desi produced? A little show called Star Trek. Only one of the most important cultural touchstones ever. And had it not been for them and their foresight and their willingness to take a chance on a premise that most other studios turned away, there would be no Star Trek. And if there was no Star Trek, what else would there not be any of? So there is just a lot that they did and a lot that they contributed that I think as we move further and further away from, we tend to forget that. And it's not an on purpose thing, and it's not a generational thing. It's just a thing of, that's what we do. And a movie like this really shows you, no, this is what they did, and this is just how forward-thinking they were for their time. So, if for no other reason, as a historical artifact, I think this film is really, really important and amazing. It does run into, if I had to pick, just kind of jumping all around in my train of thought here, if I had to pick a flaw with the film, the major flaw is that it tends to do what a lot of films dealing with important people or important time periods tend to do, and they try to have everything important happen all at once. Now, I know this is based on true events, but I don't know, did all of this really happen all in this 1 week? Lucy is accused of being a communist. She suspects Ricky of cheating. She is found out to be pregnant. They're having problems with Vivian Vance because she's tired of being told how ugly she is on the air. Did all of this really happen all at once? So on top of Lucy dealing with her marriage and dealing with being called a communist, they're now trying to fight with the network about letting her be pregnant on the air. Did all that happen all at once? Because it really feels like it's jammed in there just to give them so much shit to deal with that it's almost comical. Which, as I think about it, that may be the point, because that is a Lucy skit, is things just keep coming at her and she keeps trying to handle them, but they keep getting away from her. So that's like the only major issue I have with the film. There's just a lot of really smart choices being done in here, and again, that has to go down to Alan Arkin as a director and a writer. For instance, I love how it shows, one of the ways it illustrates just kind of the comic genius that Lucille Ball was, is they'll be sitting there at the table read, and she'll be picturing it in her head, and when she does, it'll go to the black and white reenactment of the show, and it'll kind of go back, and she won't like something, she'll go back and change something, and the image will change, that she's working out how to make everything funny, or funnier. And I just think that was a really, really brilliant way to illustrate that, to illustrate her inner thought process. The other thing I can honestly say about Alan Sorkin is no matter what else you may think about him, the man is well researched. I don't know as much about the history of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz as I do about Lou Costello, but I know enough. And he really got, I mean, when you go and you find the exact dialogue and jingle recordings and whatnot from My Favorite Husband, so you can recreate it faithfully, that shows a real intention to detail, which I dig, especially on a thing like this. It's so hard to kind of talk about this one in any one way because everything is praise. It's a really, really well put together and really smart film. I guess let's talk about our main actors here for a second. I don't think much needs to be said about Nicole Kidman at this point because Nicole Kidman, as I mentioned, is one of our finest actors. She's always good. She has amazing stage presence. And as she's gotten older and her career has matured, she's taken on more and more complicated roles. And playing Lucille Ball is not easy. You know, not just in terms of the recreation of the physical comedy that she was famous for, or the vocal quality she was famous for, but capturing a powerful woman, an intelligent woman, kind of always put in the bottle of you play not so much dumb, but you play naive. You know, there's a lot going on there, and I like that it portrays her. She is a tough boss, and she is a demanding boss, and she's constantly calling out the writers, and she's constantly doing this and this and this. But I also like that it gives a good explanation of, you know, I always hate this phrase, but the pressures of being a star, the pressure of this show has to be perfect every time because it's my name on it, and if it's not, then we're all screwed. So I like that it explains a little bit about her journey and her thought process and why she's kind of the way she is, and not just saying, oh, she was just a bitch in power. You know, that's not the painting that it's working with. I also think huge props need to go to Javier Bardem for playing Desi Arnaz. Again, one of the most underrated and influential people in Hollywood, but is always kind of typecast as the naive guy with the, you got some splaining to do, which, much like Dolly Parton would years later, he would use that perception to his advantage because everybody thought he was so stupid, and he turns out he was always the smartest guy in the room. And again, you have an interesting character here. It'd be very easy to always play him off as the bad guy, as the cheating husband, and all of that. But you see that, no, he does care about her. He does, have genuine feelings for her. He does love Lucy. But he also has a lot of pressure that he's under, and he also doesn't feel he's getting the respect that he should. And it doesn't justify the things that he does, but it at least gives you a decent explanation as to why it happened. And the two of them have amazing chemistry together. It is a really, really strong performance from both of them. And that had to be there. You've got it, because say what you will about Lucy and Desi, but they worked perfectly together. They were a Burns and Allen of their time. That's another line I really love. There's two lines in this I stopped and rewound the thing and clapped because I loved it. There's a moment where Lucy is having an argument with the female writer, the only female writer on the show, and who's a younger woman who's from a different generation and is trying to is responsible for some of the modernization that the show was responsible for. But they're having this argument, and the young writer tells her, you cry like a baby. Your character cries like a baby. She's infantile. And Lucille Ball says, well, Laurel and Hardy and Lou Costello do it. And the young writer responds with, well, when those men pretend to be 5-year-olds, it makes me want to retch. And Lucy says, then you don't understand comedy. I loved that. It's like, thank you for standing up for Lou Costello. But in all fairness, kind of a historical tidbit that wasn't in the film, Lou Costello was one of the only people to defend her when she was accused of being a communist. That actually is true. And then a short while later in that same scene, the young writer says something bad about Gracie Allen, and Lucille Ball tells her, "Do not badmouth Gracie Allen. You maybe if you're lucky one day you will be 1/5 of the comic talent that she is, but don't you ever badmouth Gracie Allen." It's like, hell yeah, girl, hell yeah, represent Gracie. Gracie Allen represent. And this again just goes back to the strength of Alan Sorkin's writing. The dialogue is crisp, it's fun, it's intense, it's dramatic, and all of that at once. There's so much going on in any given scene, and yet it's incredibly easy to follow. In the hands of a less talented writer or director, the dialogue and everything would become jumbled, the focus would be all over the place, but he keeps everything on a nice, tight scale. I guess I also don't need to tell you that J.K. Simmons is awesome in this. I don't have to tell you that. Much like Alan Arkin, he steals every single scene he's in and every movie he's in. And him playing William Fowler, or Fred Mertz, as most people would know him better, it was great casting. Nina Andrea does a really nice job of playing Vivian Vance and kind of expressing her issues with playing opposite Lucille Ball and not being able to be as glamorous as maybe she was hoping. The idea that the same joke being made at your expense over and over and over again is eventually going to wear you down. It's just a really great film. I don't have a lot I can really say negative about it. From every aspect, everything it attempted to do, I feel that it did, and did so in a way that no other director, no other writer, and no other actors could have done it any better. It's not a perfect film. It does run just a touch long, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Every moment is used for something. There's no flab on this. There's no scenes that don't need to be there. It is all purposeful. It's all meaningful. It all has a reason for existing. So, again, I had to track this one down, and it's always good. They always say don't meet your heroes, and I can understand that. And especially with biopictures, it seems like biopics these days, they're out to kind of tell you everybody you ever thought was great was actually a complete and total bastard. But I think this film succeeds where a lot of the other ones don't, in saying that, no, they weren't bastards, they were people. They were not only were they people, they weren't the picture-perfect black and white people that you see on the TV that you've come to associate with them. They had flaws, they had qualities, they had strife, they had struggles, they had issues, and they dealt with them in the best ways they could, sometimes well and sometimes not. And I feel like that's something that a lot of biopics just don't do very well. It's either look at this person, they were the greatest person ever, or look at this person and what a schmuck they were. And this one kind of says, no, it's a different mindset. I really liked it. For instance, great illustration. Nobody would ever think that Lucille Ball, Lucy Ricardo, would ever say the word fuck. Hearing Lucille Ball say fuck just does, it'd be like hearing Donna Reed say fuck, right? But why wouldn't she have said fuck? She was a grown woman. She was a grown woman who came of age in the entertainment industry. She probably said fuck a lot, and that's one of those little things that just says, these were people doing the best that they could. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate the respect it paid. I appreciate the detail that it went into, and I just respect this film a whole hell of a lot. So let's wrap this up. So final grade for Being the Ricardos. This is a solid A. It's not quite an A+, though that thought process may change, but it's a solid A. I really enjoyed it. It speaks to me. It's everything I love in one convenient package. So if you can still check this one out, it's on Amazon Prime. Check it out, especially if you're like me and you're a fan of classic comedy and this entire era. You won't be sorry. All right. So there we are, another film in the gauntlet down, and we are just going to keep on rolling. We got a lot to do and a lot to cover, and we're trying to cover it in a very short period of time. So I will be back very soon with our next entry, and I hope you will join me then. So, as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.